Hello and welcome to another edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. We're the show on the Serious Angler Network that is dedicated to all things kayak fishing, and I'm your host, Justin Largen. This week, well, it's been a bit of a snafu. Um, the show that I originally planned, we're going to have to postpone. We'll call it a weather delay. Our guest, as we were, the night we were recording, the power went out. Had some storms go through the area. He lost power, and that makes it tough to do a recording for a podcast with no electricity. So I'm hoping that we do get to do that show at some point here in the near future. But we are going to kind of wing it here tonight. I've got a topic that is not as good as what our guest was going to talk about, and yeah, you're definitely um, missing out a little bit. I do not hold the candle to who our guest would have been, um, but I'll talk a little bit of old school, early season lure selection. I'm going to talk three baits that I like to throw this time of year that are, I think, old school baits. But before I jump into that, uh, we've got some other stuff to cover. And I'm going to go ahead and since it's sort of a weird episode anyway, I'm going to start with our yakking on a budget tip. And for anybody who missed last week, my tip was for, I guess you could say, more thorough sunglasses cleaning. So when you get off the water at the end of the day, or before you load up in the car to go, I like Dawn dish detergent for cleaning my Hobie eyewear lenses. Um, I love to sight fish. Even when I'm not sight fishing, it bugs me to no end when my glasses get gunky. Whether it's sweat or oils from your skin, I hate it when my vision gets not, I guess, impaired, blurred when you're trying to look through that gunk. I absolutely hate it. So I like to get all that stuff off. Um, and Dawn is a good way to do that, or whatever type of liquid dish soap you choose. Uh, it's all basically the same stuff for our purposes. But that was a tip from last week, and I want to piggyback on that with what I like to do on the water, because that's when, to me, it's worse. Um, I've got to have a way to clean that off when I'm sweating and fogging up and gunking up those lenses. And my choice, I like these little lens wipes. These are from Zeiss. It's actually a company that makes camera lenses also, and that's really what these are for, is for cleaning off your camera lenses when you get out in the field. That's kind of how I was originally introduced to these, just from doing amateur photography, going out there trying to photograph wildlife. You get dust, sand, whatever on your lenses. I would always have some of these to clean them off. Basically, I'm doing the exact same thing with my eyewear. Um, you tear it open. It's it's basically like an alcohol wipe, and it's yeah, pretty simple. Circular motions, clean off all that gunk. And these, I believe, are $5 or so for 100 pack at Walmart. There's other ones that are out there. I know I've seen some from Nikon that are essentially the same thing. Um, but these cheap Walmart, I will have several stuffed in my pockets. I'll stuff some in a dry bag also. I always like to have these with me. Um, yeah, maybe not as much this time of year. Maybe it's not as much of a factor when the temps are a little bit colder, but especially as we start getting into the spring and summer months, when you're just out there sweating. Um, these things are an absolute must. So yeah, lens wipes. That's our yakking on a budget tip for this week. Next, let's do King of the Week, and then we can jump into news and notes, and then some old school baits that I like. So, King of the Week, let's see. I always struggle with the presenting. I'm going to see if I can share screen here. Struggle is always real with me and technology. All right. So this is Mr. Josiah. I know I'm boogering your last name. I apologize. Byery. I'm going to guess Josiah Byery. But this is Josiah fishing the Ocalapalooza event with Kayak Adventure Series. That is where I got this clip from. And hopefully the audio is queued up. But yeah, down in Florida.
Got him. Good giant. 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 Oh my gosh. Giant. Oh my gosh. 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 That's my TV. Ah! Oh my gosh. No way. That is a giant.
Hopefully
Dude,
everybody
that's
can
a
hear
6 or
that.
7 pounder, I bet. Oh my gosh. Yo, you see this? Oh my gosh. 5.96. Let's go. Thank you, Jesus. The Lord provided this fish. Thank you, Jesus.
The GoPro.
So that was a cool catch. That brought a smile to my face. Again, it's on the Kayak Adventure Series Instagram page. How do we stop screen? But that was Josiah's personal best, right at 6 pounds. I'm not sure if he saw the fish, if he was bed fishing, but he's, for the folks that are just listening. Hopefully you heard all the splashing and the excitement. But a bunch of pads. He's fishing around pads, and then there was a clump of arrowhead. I always seem to find beds around that stuff down in Florida. And I'm guessing that was what the fish that he caught was doing. So again, I don't know if he was actually sight fishing, but he pitches in there, sets the hook, and yeah, gets that big in the boat. So congrats to Josiah. You're our king of the week. And news and notes. We've got a couple tournaments that I found that I thought I would touch on, and I wanted to start with the Team Kayak Series. This is something that Gene Jensen put together. Michael Musgrove is the tournament director. They had their first event on Lake Murray, and I heard about it. I hadn't actually gone and watched the some of the videos that are out there where they describe it in more detail. I got the gist of it. It's a team series, so it's 2-man teams, and I, I can see that being really fun. I've done, I guess I've only done one team tournament, and it was a little bit different. It wasn't an in person where everybody's fishing the same body of the water together. It was an online deal, so it almost doesn't count. But I enjoyed it. Uh, it's just it's a different feel working with somebody when it's not just you necessarily trying to figure it out by yourself. I know I have plenty of days out there on the water where I just can't seem to get a clue, can't figure out what the fish are doing. So having a buddy that you can bounce an idea off of, um, it gives me a chance that there might be something that they find that I've missed, and then we can both go out there and catch fish. But I wanted to highlight the top finishers here, and I may try to get some of these guys. I want to talk to some of the guys who and get more info, kind of their thoughts on how that series, that the season opener or series opener was. Um, but let's recognize the top 3 teams. So Team Delaware Paddle Sports, that is Dave Shields and Aaron Fetterman. They put up 191 and a half inches to take third. So congrats. And then John and Kendall Klein, their team name is Will Kick Your Bass. They finished second with 193 and a half inches. And then Team Networthy, that's Wyatt Hammond and Justin Faircloth, took home the win with 204 inches for those 2 days of competition. Great showing there. Lake Murray is a lot of fun. That place, I've been a handful of times. Always fun. It's full of big fish, and I'm not surprised that some were caught this week. Let me scroll up here. Yeah. Event Big Fish went to Brenner Ramos, a 23.5 inch. Ooh, that's a pretty large mouth. Yeah. So congrats to those guys, Wyatt and Justin breaking the I guess 200-inch mark for a 2-day tournament. So that's another cool thing. Congrats to those guys. The other tournament I wanted to touch on was the Chickamauga. Well, I'm sorry, the Tennessee Bass Nation event, their third stop of the year on Chickamauga Lake. There was a big turnout for this event. The Tennessee guys show out, 118 anglers, and yeah, those guys called them. Chickamauga is another fun fishery I've been to a number of times. So in third with 88 inches, Peyton Hughes. And then second, 90.5 inches, went to Ron Butler. And taking home the win with 95 inches, Luke Graham. So great job to those guys as well. The last tournament I wanted to touch on was one I actually fished in myself. It was the Queen City Kayak Bass Fishing. It was their second stop of the year, and it was on Lake Wiley. So it's North Carolina, South Carolina. I'd never been down there before. It's actually surprisingly close to home. It took me it took me less time to get there than it does to go back up north to fish the Potomac. It's only about 3.5 hours for me, so that was cool. I plan to do some more of these North Carolina events, um, but I did not do so well. So let's talk about the guys that did do well. In third with 70.25 inches, Adam Wyatt. Then with 72.5 inches, Adam Fillmore took second. And for the win with 73.25 inches, Jeremy Hughes. And for anybody that's not familiar with Queen City, uh, those are not low totals. Those are 4 fish totals. Queen City, they have a 4 fish limit. So I think that's kind of a cool wrinkle on the traditional 5 fish format. Um, you know, you got one less fish that you have to catch. You only need 4 bites in a day. But since you only get to count 4, they better be quality. So it kind of, I feel like that can factor into the strategy. Um, using those bigger baits, trying to target those bigger fish. But congrats to those guys. Great show in there, and I hope to do some more of those Queen City events, venturing down into to North and South Carolina. And that's actually a pretty good segue into, I guess, the topic that I wanted to cover. Again, I'm no expert. None of this is anything revolutionary. Just some old school baits that I like to throw this time of the year, and specifically where we were at on Wiley. Water temperature was right at 50, surface temp anyway. So 50 degrees. That tends to be the water temp when I start getting out more. Um, I don't fish probably as much as I should when the water's down in the 40s. I had planned to this year, and then we had this unseasonably cold winter, and it seemed like every time I had a day off, the weather was absolute garbage. We had some of the small bodies of water around here freeze for the first time in a few years. And then we even had some of the pockets on some of the big lakes, like Smith Mountain. Some of the backwaters, the pockets were frozen solid for days at a time. One of the ramps was frozen at one point for a few days. So some unseasonably cold weather, you know, combined with me being a wuss, kept me off the water for most of January and February. I did get to sneak in that Florida trip, so that was awesome and much needed. But yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of fishing in January and February close to home. So it was fun to get down into South Carolina. We had beautiful weather down there. Air temps got up to 70 when I was down there, but water temps around 50. And again, 50 to me is when I don't know. I feel like some of these moving baits, um, I start to get bit. I don't know what it is about 50 degrees, um, but that is when I start feeling good about a spinnerbait. And let's see, I got a couple of them out here. Where's my single Colorado? Ruh-roh, I misplaced my single Colorado. And that's not good. All right, so imagine this is a single Colorado. What I'm holding is a tandem spinnerbait. This is a uh, shoot. Why can't I think of the name? It's a Z-Man bait. I believe it's the finesse sling blades. And let's see. Do I have a little present? Share screen. Let's see if I can actually pull up the fish. Hmm. Nope, maybe not. I don't see it. I thought I had it queued up. Oh well. Um, but this is the exact bait. Again, a Z-Man finesse sling blades. It's the Colorado Indiana combo. So it's a gold Indiana blade, chartreuse and white spinner bait, and then a gold kicker. It's definitely a downsized bait. But that is what I caught my personal best on almost exactly a year ago. Yeah, it was a 10.5 pound fish out of some shallow, dirty water. And I should have mentioned that at the start. These picks are all kind of dirty water picks. It's something that I like to do this time of the year. I like to try and find the water that's got a little bit of color in it. I feel like that dirty water is going to retain the heat a little bit better. So especially when we get a few days, some stable weather and sun. That sun's a big deal. I feel like that sun is going to heat the dirty water quicker than the clean stuff. I also like that dirt. I feel like it masks my approach a little bit. Those fish tend to not be as spooky. I can get a little closer to them. So this is a time of year where I like that water with some stain. And there, I found it. This is my favorite spinnerbait for this time of the year. It is a covert series from Booyah, and it's a single Colorado. Uh, I like gold most of the time when I'm throwing this. And again, it's dirty water. I'm typically throwing it in. This is a chartreuse and white skirt. But a unique thing about this particular bait is it's got a painted head. And I'll throw the one that has kind of a standard white head also. Um, but when that water is really really dirty, something about that bright fluorescent head I think helps. And even if it doesn't help, it gives me confidence. It's the same concept. I mean, it's a single Colorado blade. It thumps hard, um, but you only got one blade, so you can't have your little kicker. So your fluorescent head kind of serves as that kicker. But this in the 3/8 or half ounce, I really like. Spinnerbait is pretty weedless. I can throw that into some really nasty laydowns. And that's probably the cover that I like to target the most. The other thing that I'll look for is docks. I've caught them pretty well on docks, places like Murray. I'll try to get up shallow and throw this around dock pilings. So yeah, wood cover, but yeah, spinnerbait, it's old school. A lot of guys will throw a double willow blade, um, and a lot of guys I think throw some maybe more realistic finishes. But I don't see as many guys or hear as many guys talking about that single Colorado. It's kind of an old school deal, but that thump in the dirty water in the cold this time of year, I think makes a difference. And one other thing with my spinnerbaits specifically, I like a 6-to-1 gear ratio, especially this time of year. Maybe later in the year if I'm going to be burning the spinnerbait, really moving it quick. I'll go up to a 7, but most of the time, and all the time when it's cold, I like that 6-to-1. It helps me not overpower the bait. I feel like with the 7-to-1, I get to winding too fast, especially if I catch one. I catch a fish, and it's real hard for me to calm down and slow down after that. That 6-to-1 gear ratio helps me do that. So that's some of my spinnerbait thoughts. Let's go to bait number 2, and probably an obvious choice, or what will seem an obvious choice to most people, a jig. Um, I like a little bit finessier jig when the water's still cold. And I don't know what it is. I love to flip plastics. I love a Missile Baits D bomb when that water starts getting around 60 degrees. And I know it'll catch fish in colder water also, but something about those colder temps, I just do better with a jig. I don't know what it is or why, if it's just a confidence thing, but when that water's down in the 50s, say 50 to 55, 58, um, I'm gonna have that jig tied on. And I've got a couple trailers that I like. I'm typically throwing a 3/8 or half ounce in that dirty water, pretty much always black and blue. Really hard to go wrong with that. I like this. I want to say it's a twin turbo. Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. Hopefully, I got that right. Brain is not exactly firing, but it's a twin tail grub trailer. Simple, old school. And then another thing, I got a couple of baits last year. I'm not sure how many of them are still floating around on there on the internet, but the standard missile mini flip, it's just a silicone skirt. They did a classic special a couple years ago that has rubber also. So it's a mix of that living rubber and the silicone. And I got my hands on some of those. I really like those this time of year. That living rubber, it just wants to pulse and move, and you don't have to actually move the bait to actually get some of that secondary action. So I really like that. And jig's pretty simple. I'm going to throw it in a lot of the same places that I'm going to throw a spinnerbait, and potentially those fish that are not active, that are not willing to chase. Um, my thinking is I can get the bites with a jig, just pitching it in there, giving it a hop, um, and moving on. Another trailer that I really like, I actually did really well with this trailer. This would have been Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship in 2022 on Richard Russell. Um, it's a lake that's got a lot of spotted bass and some largemouth. And I found a creek arm. I was fishing out towards the mouth earlier in the mornings, catching spotted bass with an underspin. But then when the water would start to heat up, I would get back into these pockets with some dirtier water and pitch this, not this exact color, but this jig in black and blue. And something about that mini D chunk, it fits this bait great. It kicks. It's got a good thump to it, but it's not overpowering. And I really like those two baits. Um, I don't really have hard and fast rules for the trailers. I like to play around with different things, experiment with rates of fall. I think that can be a big deal. So going up to a half ounce, I'm typically going to go 3/8 or half ounce, but I'll play around with the weights and then also with the trailers, just seeing how I'm affecting that rate of fall, and then letting the fish tell me, you get a bite, I'm going to stick with whatever was working on that particular day. So jigs, kind of a no brainer, but still a little bit of an old school bait. And then the last one, hopefully this is the sneaky one. And it's not something that works all the time. It's not something I do all the time. But again, in that springtime, once that water hits 50 and that water's got some color, I like a buzz bait. And I've got a bunch of different buzz baits that I've got some double buzz baits that I really like to use um, later in the year, a little bit smaller blades on them. But there's a double buzz that True South makes that I really like. Uh, and there's some other ones that I've tried. This particular one is one that I made. I believe I got the parts from what is it? Lure Parts Online, I think. And it basically you can buy the blades, a couple different sizes of those. You can buy the little rivets that go on there. It's not complicated. Like if I could do it, trust me, it's not complicated. They sell the wire with the head and the hook. And the style that I like this time of year, I like to go the biggest blade possible. I want a 1/4 ounce head, and this is what's it called? Gurgle toad. It's the junior size from Strike King. It just fits this particular bait well. Um, and I've got a couple different ones made up, but this is the time of year where I really like the biggest possible blade. and I want to be reeling this trailer as reel the trailer. I want to be reeling the bait as slow as possible. I want this thing to just make a racket and move slow. I really like the buzz baits that squeak. I'll try to work these to where they get a good squeak in. But this bait, um, I can't remember if I caught it before. Yeah, it was actually before the 10 pounder. I can't remember if it was the trip before or a trip after, but I want to say it was trip before. Same water temps. I had a 5 and then a 7. So it's, to me, the buzz bait, I don't get a ton of bites on it typically. Um, there's always exceptions and days where it's just a insane day. But it's one of those deals where, like, let's say I was going to fish a Queen City event where I only need 4 bites and I want to target big fish. I feel like that buzz bait is a sneaky way. It's something that not a lot of guys are doing. And as much pressure as the fisheries are getting now, I think that is a big deal. Doing something that's different from everybody else. I think the fish get conditioned to seeing some of the same baits, the same places, same times a year. And that buzz bait for me is a sneaky one. Like, I love a buzz bait all the time. Like the bite is just awesome. This time of year, they're typically not exploding on it the same way that that it happens a little bit later in the year. It's not this strike that makes you jump. It's more of a swirl behind the bait and it disappears. That's more often what I see, but a lot of times it's a big fish. So pay attention, fish it slow, lay downs. You can throw it up on points, but yeah, that buzz bait is another sneaky option. I'm trying to think of other little tidbits I might have missed. Um, those those are kind of the 3 that I like. I know they're not the only thing that works. There's a bunch of different things you can do. There's a million bait styles. I would not go to a clear water fishery and try those baits necessarily, not those exact ones. Um, but for a dirty water fishery this time of year, you got color in the water. Water's in that 50-degree range and starting to climb. I really like those 3 baits. You get some fun strikes and some big fish this time of year. So hopefully that helps you. Um, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Um, shoot, drop me a comment on social media. You can always go over to the YouTube video on Kayak Fishing Weekly and drop comments there. And yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys like to throw. If there's anything sneaky that you do this time of year, but that's what I like to do. And trying to think. I mentioned I'm hoping to, I guess, run that original show plan back. Hoping to get that guest back on here before too long. Sorry that you were stuck just with me tonight. It's going to be a little bit of an abbreviated show. And again, sorry you were stuck with me, no guest, but I wanted to get you guys some content. And next week, hopefully, it'll be more entertaining. So that's all I got for this week. And until next week, remember to take a kid fishing.